Hello, my name is Roxy, and for my passion project, I chose art. And I chose art for my passion project because it really speaks to how I really love to do it, and it helps me cope with anxiety and stress. And art has flourished since the beginning of mankind, and I think that's really important, and it really interests me. Um, art, art and is and always will be close to my heart, and that's why I chose it. My question for my passion project is what could you do to become a better artist? Um, what I have learned from my passion project is that you can never mess up in art. When doing art, it can be as creative as you'd like, and creativity never fails. The answer to my question is that the best way to do things in art is to never give up and take things slowly. These things are very important because when you rush yourself, you can't even call it art. And never giving up is important because you will always succeed if you try. For my interview, I interviewed Kay Kesark, a college art teacher. From interviewing her, I learned a lot. For instance, I learned that when doing art, you want to start with a starter sketch. This is where you include a diagram sort of thing and lightly sketch out your drawing. I also learned that when painting, it is important to stroke your paintbrush in aligning lines. Also, when shading your drawing, you want to shade the parts where you believe the light doesn't reach as well. So I'm going for a tip book for my passion project where I incorporate tips and potential drawings below it. I had a difficult time getting the right materials, getting the tips written down, and getting the project looking presentable for when I present. I also had a tough time getting the interview done. My solutions for my problems are checking in with my teachers, getting help from a friend, or just making a checklist for my project. A question I have is on how to do digital art. This topic is a whole new world to research and explore. I might want to even start a new project on digital art for fun during the summer. I definitely think my passion for art will flourish, and I will even become more attached to it. A tip I would include for someone else who's doing this project is to not hold back and to just reach for the stars and try their hardest. So here's my tip book. It's called Create and Wonder, and I drew a bunch of shapes on it, and I actually made it out of a folder, and yeah, it really worked out really well. I'm pretty proud of it. So the first tip I have is about shading. When shading, it is very important to keep things nice and clean. A cool technique is to scribble a patch of outlining the thing that you're drawing, and then lightly rub the scribble to blend it. Another technique is to shade areas where you think the light isn't reaching. One of the underrated yet very critical things in art is shadows. This is another form for shading, and it adds dimension, and it makes your drawing look more presentable. To do a shadow, you should almost make a copy of the thing you're drawing, and either make the end of the shadow smaller as it concludes to look like an illusion. And so here's my example. I used my techniques to draw this. I don't know if it's the best technique out there, but it works pretty well. So yeah, that's my example drawing. My tip number 2 is about starter sketches. A starter sketch is is the base of the drawing to make it easier, and you will not have to erase a lot. To begin a starter sketch, draw very lightly the basic shapes of your drawing. It will not have to look like all detailed or anything like your goal yet. It is very important to focus on the general shapes before you start focusing on the details and outlines, or else you will have a hard time capturing the subject in an accurate way. The solution is to focus on the basic shapes first, and then make the overall object as you draw. And here's my example drawing. So it's just kind of like an overall base of what you want your drawing to look like. Tip number 3, accuracy and composition. If you want to place your drawings and objects randomly, you will have a hard time keeping your drawing neat and will eventually have trouble telling what the important parts of your drawing are. The solution to this is to lightly make a grid with a pencil or a ruler. To create the grid, draw lines horizontally and vertically using a ruler. Remember to make sure the lines of the grid are equally distributed throughout your paper. The best way is to split the paper into thirds with your pencil. All the lines that cross each other are where you should draw your points of interest. The grid will help your drawing look balanced and interesting. And here's my example drawing, but I didn't do it lightly in pencil because I wanted you guys to be able to see it. Yeah, so here's just like the overall layout. It doesn't have to look perfect, but I tried my best, so just try your best with it. My fourth tip is planning your art piece. To plan your art piece, you can draw out your ideas on a separate piece of paper. This method also helps you understand if you want to flip the canvas vertical or horizontal to see what fits best for your idea. If you don't know what to draw, which is called artist block, you can simply look at inspiration without copying. There's actually a lot of professional artists that use this technique, so it's okay to use it. If you're looking to do a completely original art piece, you can go on a walk and observe your surroundings. I personally recommend this technique just because it's avoiding the risk of potentially taking someone's idea. Planning your art is actually very important, and many professionals use this technique. And my tip number 5, which is my last tip, is called cool and warm tones. When making drawings, people tend to forget about adding dimension to their art. If you are adding something, it is very important to incorporate cool and warm tones. For an example, it adds a lot of dimension to your drawing. When you shade the part with where the light hits with a warmer tone and shade the shadow with cooler tones, this creates an illusion that the art is popping alive with color. However, if you like to draw something with a cold or dark scene, I would recommend adding a lot of cool tones and not as many warm tones. And the same applies if you want to do a bright and warm scene. Add more warm tones and not as many cool tones. And here's my example drawing. And I just drew a simple heart with Sharpie, and then I just did the shading with just like with colored pencils. I used like a dark purple on this one and an orange. You can't really see it that well, but it's there. And yeah, that's my project.